we're doing, what is it? You feel a whole, you do. I mean, a knee, he'd swap that in a minute.
Oh, that's nothing.
Nothing compared to getting mugged and falling down the stairs and having your car stolen with a gun in your face. Right. Just, you got stung by a wasp?
Yeah, my back, I couldn't even get.
Why don't you and Gene go up and get together and maybe you can have a romance, huh? Okay, gee. But he's a nice little guy. Welcome again, and we're doing something with, you know, the funny thing is, after talking about the unique subject we're covering today is called happiness. And that's good. And that's the process of life. So let's talk about it for a while and see what we come up with. Happiness. And see why it sometimes becomes so elusive, because the process of living should be happiness. We were kind of touching on that last night, and yet we look and we see the problems to be solved, you know, actually lie in the discovery of ourself, and how then do we operate in the process of living, functioning with others. Let's look at two causes of unhappiness, okay? And the first cause of unhappiness would be self-condemnation. Okay? Guilt trips, condemning self. The second cause of happiness is trying to reform. Trying to reform, but trying to reform other people so that they'll be free of the very things that you've never been able to get free from in the first place. Right? Yes. Listen to me. I'm really gonna make you what you should be. The only thing is, I've not been able to make me what should be. So there's two really big points concerning happiness. Now there's a biblical line. For instance, when we thought of getting free of all of these things that are bad, trying to reform others, there is a biblical statement in the Bible that's quite damaging to the Christian idea of reforming other people. Because religious ideas concerning reformation are that you come to church, you invite Jesus to come into your heart, and then you're set free. See? The only problem with it, and it's a very simple problem, is it doesn't work. See? It doesn't work. Because life is more complex than that. And then there's something else, too, that when we look at the Bible and we study what it actually says, we find something very, very significant. Look at page 963. Look at page 963 with me, and we'll read something together that totally contrary to what religion says is necessary for you in order to find happiness. It says that you have to invite Jesus into your heart. When you invite Jesus into your heart, you then receive salvation and you find happiness. Okay. But watch what it says on page 963. You're in the book of Colossians. You're in Colossians chapter 3 and verse 11. And look what it says. Where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcision nor uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond nor free, but Christ is all and in all. What it just told you in the Bible was that in barbarians, Christ exists. Can you imagine Attila the Hun coming up to make an altar call? He doesn't have to. Attila the Hun already, as a barbarian according to the Bible, is filled with Christ. It's not a question of asking anybody to come into your heart. The point is that what is necessary for you to achieve this thing called happiness is already inside of you. But the problem is most of us find a need to suppress it. And the reason that you have a need to suppress it is because of your obligations and your commitments and your responsibilities. And your obligations and your commitments and your responsibilities do not allow you to let loose that happiness which is dwelling and yearning to be set free from within. You can't do it. And the reason you can't do it is tradition says you cannot be yourself. You're not allowed to be yourself. You must be the system. You must be the crowd. And I learned as a little child, approximately 9 or 10 years old, that I was not going to be that way. Ever since that time. But still, I've had things that I've had to repress. You have things that you have to repress. Just think what it is. What is it that would make you happy? But you cannot express it. You cannot allow it to come forth because of your responsibilities, your commitments, your obligations, or the system. So you repress it. And so you go through life wishing, I wish I had done this. I wish that I had done this when I was younger. I had an opportunity, but I never did this. And you never, and you never, and you never. So life is a continuing source of repression, and then it becomes a source of depression because you never took the step that you really wanted to take. The system wouldn't let you take it. So religion comes along and they give you a very simplistic type of approach. You walk up an aisle, you raise your hand, you say you love Jesus, and you accept Jesus, you sign a card, and you're going to be happy. And then you find that not only are you not happy, but you're now part of a mob that isn't happy. You're now part of a mob that goes out on Wednesday night and eats ziti under a dish in a basement someplace in some dingy thing and says, I'm happy. I feel so good to be here. What is it? Okay? So the question is, how do we express ourselves? And so what Paul says in the Bible is you can't look at inviting Christ in your heart because Christ is already there. It's not a question of you asking God to come into you. It's a question of God saying, hey, I'm in here. You come in. You come in and visit. You come in and let's talk, say. Now, they say in religious circles, what we ask you to do is ask Jesus to come into your heart. How many of you have ever heard them say that on time? Ask Jesus to come into your heart. Everybody said that, right? Now, I want you to look at the words of Jesus Christ and watch and study his words very carefully, because when somebody says to you, I want you to ask Jesus to come into your heart and you'll be saved, I want you to see what Jesus says. Go to page 882. Page 882, the book of John. You're in the 16th chapter. And look what it says in verse 23. Look at it. Read it. Read it for yourself. Look at it with your own eyes. Me telling you it says this is not what's going to make it work. You've got to see it. It says, and in that day you shall ask me nothing.
What verse, Bill?
John 16, verse 23. In that day, you shall ask me nothing. Now he goes on to say, but whatever you ask in my name, the Father shall give it to you. The thing that you've got to understand is just like when you say shoot the bull means conversation, spill the beans means talk out of turn. The word name in mysticism in the East means way. And what he just said to you, what you ask in the way that I tell you to ask it, it will be granted to you. And the way Jesus said to ask, the method he used to pray, is to find that center within yourself and touch that center and sit under its light and sit under its power and let it bring to life the rose that dwells deep within the center of your being. Every person then in the universe, I don't care if it's Saddam Hussein, Ayatollah who, I don't care, it's Yasser Arafat, it doesn't make any difference, Al Capone, everybody has Christ within them. Every single thing. Everybody in the universe, whether they're a Jew, they're a Buddhist, or whatever, they're a Christian, because Christian does not mean Jesus. Christian means Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness means Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness means the center within you where the child comes to life. See? So, you now have, each one of you, and I don't know what your individual circumstance is, and I'm not going to get into your individual circumstance because you don't know what my individual circumstance is, but each individual sitting in here has an instinct. You have a desire. Deep within yourself, you have something that you would like to do, something that you would like to create, something that you would like to be, something that you would like to feel, something that you would like to express, but never are you allowed to let that loose, because what would they think of you? What would somebody say? See? You could look at each one of you staring at me now, but at that point there's something going through your head. What is it that you've never been able to do that you want to do? What is it? What feeling that you have that you've never been able to express because it just wouldn't sit right with the system? Wouldn't sit right with your family. Wouldn't sit right with your friends. But yet it's yours, and so what do? You hide it and you repress it. But it's your instinct. It's your desire, it's your instinct. Where does it come from? It comes from God. The system has made it wrong. The system has made it out of step with them, and yet there is something within you that comes from God. So if the system of religion said it is wrong for the Canadian goose to fly from Canada to Acapulco, it doesn't make any difference. because they don't follow religion. They don't follow systems. They don't follow denominations. They follow instinct, that which we've suppressed. And when it comes time to fly, they fly. They don't ask the pastor. They don't ask the government. They don't ask the law. They just fly. It doesn't make any difference whether they have to stay here or they have responsibilities or they have commitments. It's irrelevant. They fly. And that's what we've negated. And that's why people tear each other's heart out. That's why people drop bombs on one another. That's why people have systems where you have to have children on drugs, because children are repressing just like, and the first thing you do when you have a child is you start showing it to repress. Don't do that. Don't say that. Don't think that. Don't touch that. Don't do this. Be the way we are. Screwed up. Nervous wrecks. How are you ever going to grow up to afford a psychiatrist like your daddy unless you listen? Because you have to have a psychiatrist. You have to have Valium. How could you go through life without Valium? Oh, my God. Right. So they come down, and the little kids play, and they spin. Don't spin. You'll get dizzy. Because we don't understand what spinning is. We don't understand what the universe is. You take them to the beach. And they sit in the sand. Get out of the sand! They go near the water. Don't! You're going to get soaked. They get ice cream all over their face. My God, you're a mess. I can't take you. I'll give you a nice shirt. Sand is to sit and water is to get wet and ice cream is to smear all over your face. But we've got to make the system think and act and be the way we are. So, you should spin because the universe spins. Everything spins. Everything is a cycle. Even DNA that goes through you is in a cyclic pattern. The coiled serpent spins. When you flush the John, it spins. Everything spins. Everything spins.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, she said. But religion takes what is God-given and tries to force it out of you, and then they place restrictions on you that even they can't keep. See? Can you imagine if you could express yourself the way you want to express yourself? See? And though each one, you couldn't even sit to the person next to you and discuss it, but you know deep inside of yourself what I'm talking about. One person has the courage to sit in the front row and shake their head yes. But look at Matthew chapter 23. Look at page 800 in the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 23, and look what it says. Look what it says about religion. Look what Jesus says about religion. Matthew 23, verse 4, "For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers." Do you know what they do? You know what they do? They put you in conflict with yourself. Because they say this is the way to live, and you know it's not the way to live, yet you have to pretend that that's the way to live. You don't live that way, but when you're in front of them or in front of their friends, you pretend that you live that way. You go home and you live the way you want to live. You go to Atlantic City because none of them go. One day you're in a casino and you see one in the other end, so you sneak out and go to the other casino because you don't want them to know. There's a guilt by doing something that's totally normal, totally healthy and wholesome, nothing wrong with it at all, but there's a guilt connected with it because now you're exposed to one of them. And then when you get there, you'll say, and you'll start a rumor about who was seen in the Taj Mahal. You will never say that you saw that person, but you heard from somebody that so-and-so was seen in the Taj Mahal. So how come they're down here being so holy, 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 holy? It's a big game. It's a big charade. It's a big act. It's a big fraud. And it's tremendous heaps of repression, which culminate in depression, which culminate in things like Al Cruz had to go through, those types of things. Heart bypasses and cancer operations and all of this stuff. And it all comes from that same place. We are in dis-ease. We are out of sync. We are out of harmony. We are out of harmony with our own instinct. We're not allowed to express ourselves because they don't want us to. There's no condemnation in anybody because you don't follow man-made rules. How do we get that through anybody's head? If you're following your instincts and it's out of line with what man-made rules say, then there's no condemnation at all. You're following what you feel. You're unique, you're different, you may be screwy as far as they're concerned, but maybe they're the ones that are nuts. And they are the ones that are nuts. Because if they were sane, they wouldn't be dropping bombs on one another. They've raped and pillaged the universe. They've polluted it. They've killed the animals. They've destroyed things. They've hurt the children. They drop bombs on one another. What did we say last week in The Enemy Maker? What is really armies? What do armies do? Armies have one job: to make murder into patriotism. And you know what? We buy it. We send them over, they get done slaughtering 50,000 people. There's children and old ladies and dogs and everybody else slaughtered and dead and blown to bits. And we all come home marching with a flag and we all sing, "God bless America." And it doesn't make any difference. And we even do it in church. We hang the ribbons outside the church and we think that God, of whatever God is into this because we're right. We're always right. Have you ever heard about a war that we fought that we said we were wrong? Oh no, we're right. Even to the point where in Vietnam say, in order to save the city, I've got to destroy it. Oh yeah, I understand that. He's right. Let's go. Charge! Wipe the Indians out. Kill the Indians. Slaughter the Indians. We're right. God's on our side. See? We've done it, and we'll always do it because now we've got a way to justify it. We used to justify it with religion. We used to have Joshua go into the cities and rape the women and pillage and plunder and kill the children and rob everything. Say, God told us to do it. We're right. It's in the Bible. It's got to be right. This is God's holy word. I put it on Granny's piano, and it says, yes, go into the city and rape everybody and pillage and burn and loot. But God told us to do it. So now whatever, we do it for God and we do it for country. We murder and we rape and we pillage and we kill, but after all, we've got a reason to do it. So how then do we expect we're ever going to be able to come into a church and say, praise the Lord, God is good, when our minds are filled with all of the hostility that have been put upon us? But if you recognize that every one of you has a path of God, you may not like what that path is. How are you going to express it? How are you going to set yourself free? Who are you going to be? Where is somebody that you can talk to? Who can you talk to about it? And you know, most of the cases you'll do just what you're doing now. You'll stare. Because who can you talk to? Who can you say? What can you say? How can you do it? How can you release this from yourself and share this thing that you feel inside? See? But when you finally realize that these are God-given instincts, that you are the way you are because you were created that way, then you neither can condemn your own instincts nor condemn those of another person. If a person is acting out an instinctive mood, and that instinctive mood is from God, then you're trying to help change them. You shouldn't be that way. Who says? Who made the rules that say she shouldn't be that way? You? A book? Some dope wrote a book and said this is the way it is. Some stupid fool writes a book about etiquette and says you should do this when you sit at the table. She should do it when she sits at the table, not me. I want to sit at the table and do what I want to do. If I want to sit with a cat sitting at a table, I'll sit with a cat sitting at a table. That's the way I want it. That's not in her book of etiquette. I looked in the book of etiquette. It didn't say anywhere where the cat sits at the table. And I was with the cat sitting at the table. The cat sometimes puts its paw up on the table to get. See, we put a little doily in front of the cat, a little napkin, and I put little pieces, and the cat can put its foot and eat, but it cannot put its paws up. When the cat puts its paws up, I say, no, no, Prissy. And Prissy said, who the heck are you to tell me no, no? That's what I want to do. But it's always no, no. So you can't do this. We've set the rules. See? And we're all miserable trying to, and tell me about it. What do? Misery sets in tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And then heaven returns Friday afternoon at 5. Oh, God, I got to go. You see them, they fly out of these offices, they grab their bags and they're running out of the office. 5 o'clock, I'm free. But all week you're in bondage. It doesn't have to be that way. We've allowed the system to create itself into a bondage system instead of a fun system. Live and let live. See, we try to turn people away from their own instincts and say they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, even though instinctively they do it. Instinctively, they do it. Let me show you something. Go to page 789. Look at what Jesus talks about people that have problems and the advice that we give to people. It's in Matthew chapter 13. Isn't it great to feel now that that screwy thing you've been thinking of all this time, maybe you should share this with the world? Maybe you should share this with everybody. How about coming up here and sharing your inhibitions, sharing your instincts, sharing your fetishes, sharing all of these weird things? Come on! Look. Matthew 13.
The show doesn't have an X rating.
Oh, Don, I didn't know. You see the funny thing is, all of a sudden you loosen up. All of a sudden you start to smile. Because why? Everybody's joined you in laughing now. Now it's okay. Say, it's okay. Everybody feels the same way. You kind of get a relief from that. You kind of get a freedom from that. You know, you don't have to walk around even if it's just for a few seconds pretending. Everybody laughs. It breaks the tension a little bit because you know deep within yourself that there is things that you have repressed that have made you very unhappy. And unhappiness eventually makes you depressed, and depression eventually makes you very sick. And all of a sudden you're at a doctor, and the doctor's diagnosing you have this, but the doctor never says this is why you have this. Dean Ornish, who's the most wonderful New Age heart surgeon and heart specialist out in California, says, in fact, he's the only New Age, if you would call him, heart specialist in the world that is covered by the large insurance companies. His work is covered by the large insurance companies. And he says it's a lot easier for a doctor to say, you have this, we're going to do a bypass, than to sit down with a person and say, look, this is how we'll prevent you from having a bypass. This is what's going on that's wrong. This is what's going on that's wrong in your life. And if you turn this around, you can avoid this. And all of this stuff accumulates. Oh, a plaque is accumulated. Why? Why did the ulcer start? Why? And all of these things, because somewhere deep in the center of our consciousness, there's a repression. And instead of trying to work it out and act it out and allow ourselves to be free and maybe find people that we can share and sit with and talk about it and express ourselves and become free, we repress it, and it digs deeper and deeper and deeper. And then it roots itself in, and trouble starts. Look what Jesus Christ said. He was talking about tares and wheat. Tares, let's call them weeds. Okay? Weeds and wheat. It's a little parable, but it's talking about the same thing. Matthew chapter 13. And somebody says, the enemy, verse 39, the enemy sowed them is the devil, see, which is the lower mind, see. And it says, Jesus Christ, wait a minute now, where am I here? 13, okay, but forget 1339. That's the description of it. Before that, it's the understanding of 1328, okay? An enemy has done this. And the servant said, well, what should we do? Gather them up? In other words, should we gather the weeds up? And look what Jesus says, no. Because when you gather up the weeds or the tares, you're going to root up also the wheat. Let them both grow together. You see, Jesus said, get off everybody's back. Get off your own back. Get off everybody else's back. Let people live. Let people express themselves. You don't know if what they're doing is wrong. You think it's wrong. You've set up a system and a standard that says this. You know, in this country we have laws that say this is right and this is wrong. You go to some other country and that's not right and that's not wrong. It's completely different. It depends who sets the standards. And Jesus Christ is saying, get off everybody's back. Let a person develop. Let a person mature. And those things that should not be attached will fall away by themselves. See, because as the center becomes strong, that which should not be will fall away by itself. Doesn't require you, doesn't require me to put people in guilt trips because of the way they feel or the way they want to express themselves. Doesn't require that. See? So many people don't understand that the world that we live in is a world that we create. We've made it that way. There was no society, there's no system, there was no religion. We've created all of this stuff. So what do you want to? You still sit here and you still have to worry about what your obligations are. What's the kid want to do? What's the husband want to do? What's the wife want to do? And you'll sit there many times and say to yourself, well, nobody ever asked me what I want to do. And generally you'll ask that when everybody else is gone and you're sitting all by yourself. Then you start kicking things, saying, why the heck doesn't anybody ask me what I wanted? I got to worry what the kids wanted. What the heck what about me? See? But you got to be there, and you got to get the car, and you got to pick up so-and-so, and so-and-so's nose is running. You got to wipe that, you got to pick that, take this, and all the while, this thing inside of you that wants to make you happy, that is instinctively yours, that is totally unique, you can't tell anybody. You can't be involved with it. And if your creation has not been good up to this point, then start creating. Who's got the guts to start creating? Who's got the courage to say, okay, I'll find a way. I'll let that which is within me, somehow I'll find a way to express myself, because I've got to let this free. I can't allow this thing to keep burrowing deep inside of me, because it's divine. Follow your instincts. But one thing you must do, you must be in meditation so that the instinctive path that you're following is condoned, that the pineal gland is alert and active, and this is coming from the right side. It is coming from God himself. Then go. What is created in your mind becomes your life, physical and mental. And not only what is created in your mind becomes your life, it becomes the life of everybody around you. What is created in your mind becomes the life of your children. What is created in your mind becomes the life of your husband or your wife, everybody. Even, do you know what? Even people after they live with each other a long time start to look like one another.
That's pretty sweet.
What do you think? See what you got to look forward to?
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa. They do, but isn't that strange? Have you ever seen people really married long? And you know what will happen too many times? After people have been married many years, one will die, and then the other one, 6 months later, will die. Nothing wrong, they just die.
It's better than looking like your pet.
Yes. They become. That's where they become. I heard that. But let me tell you let me give you an idea what I'm talking about. Let's picture this. Your loved one is on flight 202. The plane crashes. You are totally destroyed. You've heard it on the radio. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a U.S. Air, flight 202. There's been trouble. It crashed on its approach to the runway. We don't know yet, but it looks like there's no chance there's any survivors. The loved one you had was on that plane. You are absolutely in a state of absolute destruction. But you're not destroyed by reality because your loved one missed the plane. Got caught in a traffic jam. Never made it. Is still in a traffic jam, trying to get to a phone to tell you they're going to have to get a later plane because they couldn't. But that doesn't make any difference. Your mind reacts not on the basis of the fact, but on the illusion of how you would feel if the person is alive and well, stopped in a diner, waiting for this other guy to get off the phone, having a cup of coffee, doesn't even know that the plane crashed. See? But the illusion has taken its toll. You're devastated, not by what happened, but what you thought happened or what you thought might happen. So we become devastated all the time. How many times have you been devastated in your life by what you thought might happen or what you thought happened? Somebody didn't get home. Didn't call. You know, I've had situations where this woman, I've actually called the state police. Have you seen a blonde riding around out in Cream Ridge somewhere in Columbus, wherever the heck it is? I don't know where. How come she don't come home? Why don't they call? But then you start thinking, as soon as they're not home, they don't call, your mind starts creating things. Your mind starts creating a drama, an accident. They were attacked, carjacked, any kind of thing. Your mind instantly, and then you know what? Instantly you start suffering as if it had happened. See? And when you've reached the point where you're starting to sweat and perspire, the car pulls in the driveway. I've called him up. She went out with Rose. I called Joe up. I said, where are they? And he'd say, and then you know what I do when I do that? I trigger his mind. He wasn't thinking that. He was listening to some cowboy on the radio. But now he turns the radio off and he thinks, gee, maybe something. Now he's thinking it. There's two people. But do you see what we do with the whole creation, what we do with the system, what we do with the world? We create these things. It goes from mind to mind. Before you know it, you got millions of lunatics, all scared to death of something that never will happen. All scared to death of something that didn't happen. See? The mind does not function on reality. Your mind does not function on what is real. Your mind functions on what you think. And what you think, if you're like me, is pretty weird. And you all grin because, see, but you don't tell anybody. You can't dare tell anybody. Eve, would you like to get up and tell?
I would.
No, thank you. You hear that British accent? No, thank you. Pip, pip. See? You might. I'm not going to ask you. Okay? So the whole world of excruciating hell, which does not exist, one day soon will be changed into heaven by this divine wrath. This is the point where you're going to be set free. That's what the good news is. It's what the mind perceives that creates the world. So the mind has to be renewed. That's what it says in Romans 12:2. Be renewed in your thinking. Be free. And the one way you can be free is by coming here and separating yourself from them out there. You're not going to be a part of it anymore. You don't belong to a group. You don't have to think like I do. God forbid. You don't have to think like the person sitting next to you. That might even be better. You think for yourself. You act out your own life. You be an individual. You be free from the illusion of the mob. All you can ever know about anything is what you think. And more often than not, it's an illusion. More often than not, the things that you think about other things are illusions. You haven't the slightest idea. That's why Joan and I, when we went down to Key West, we stood in front of the gay nightclub. We looked at each other and they said, let's go in. Because I've heard all of these terrible things. I said, let's go in. We sat down, two queens sat at the table with us. What was it, Samantha and Gloria? How are you, Samantha? Hello, Gloria. We were sitting with two guys. It was an illusion. They had their dresses on and their hair and a lipstick and, you know. And I'll be quite frank with you, if I wasn't married and if I didn't know better, I'd have chased both of them down the street. Then they turn around, surprise, surprise, surprise. Oh, I didn't know. Hey, Samantha, woo, Gloria, wow. But you know what? You know what? There's not too many preachers around here would tell you of their experience in a gay nightclub. But you know what? There's probably quite a few of them that have been there.
We didn't recognize them with their makeup.
Right.
Tell us how you would go.
Well, I didn't go to the men's room. No, I wouldn't go to the men's room.
Went to the ladies' room.
Yeah, because did you go to the ladies' room? I didn't see you. Did you? You did? But you didn't know whether there was any ladies in there. The tip-off is when Gloria comes in and says, hi, hon. They all say hon, you know, hi, hon. Okay. But it's fun. But you know what? I loved it for one reason. They were what they wanted to be. It doesn't make any difference. We can create a scenario that says it's wrong, and we do that. We fight about, oh, we can't have gays in the military. When I was in the Navy, the guy that slept in the bunk above me below me was gay. I never knew it. I thought he was a sissy. But he was a very nice sissy. He really was a nice guy. But now I realize he was as gay as could be. Never bothered me. He didn't bother anybody. But you know what bothers me about this whole thing? And I tell people this, the same group that is not comfortable with gays in the military is also not comfortable with women in the church. What's that all about? What's that all about? So, and I'll tell you one last thing as we wrap this up. Your willpower also cannot be determined by willpower. Your will can play a part in suppression and depression, but willing against your instincts is not positive. And you know what you do? You tell your own kids, don't think that way, don't speak that way. Better off to sit down and talk to them, find out why they feel that way, why they think that way. Don't forget that one lady wrote me and said, I don't know what to do. My son says there's no God. What am I going to do? I wrote her back. I says, the kind of God that you've constructed, he's right. Listen to him. He's giving you wisdom. There is none. There is no man sitting on a planet crucifying people and sending bombs on people and sending devils and demons. He's trying to tell you truth. Listen to him. She couldn't deal with that because the authority says that there is. So the answer lies in idealism, the ideal attitude of your soul, not your mind. Your soul holds towards those inward things, and that's where you will get in touch with yourself. That's why meditation is so important, to get in touch with yourself. Then you'll have to sit down with somebody. You'll have to sit down with somebody and share with somebody. Talk it over. And then maybe you can let this thing out that has bothered you for so long. Because if your ideal is to come into harmony with the universe, then vibrations of harmony will come from you. And you know what will happen then? This is where you come into trust. This is what I ask you to do. Because no matter what it is inside of you, no matter what that inhibition, no matter what that you have suppressed all of your life, when you come into contact with yourself deep into meditation, suddenly that meditation will form a hedge around you. It will protect you. And it will keep you. It says in the book of Job, have you not made a hedge about him? There are vibrations of harmony which protect you as you flow in this inner soul, in this inner harmony, in this inner development of new life and of the child within you. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But if your desire is to reform people, if your desire is to change people, then you're fighting against nature itself. Because what you're doing really is trying to change those people from what might be the proper path into what you think is the proper path. So you say, you can't. And nature says to them, I can. And that's why you see so many children just bust and say, I'm going. Remember all the flower children used to hit the road and the highways? They couldn't take it anymore. Because they're living with families and they're living in institutions and societies that are hypocritical phonies. You know? Who wants it? I walked out as a little kid. I marched out of school, out the back door, went into the woods. Because I couldn't stand it. I didn't want to be around it. I didn't want to go home because it was a violent place. I didn't want to come into the school because it was a violent place. They would teach me something about Shakespeare and about things that I didn't care. I don't care, but I'm not interested in that. I want to know. I want to be. I want to exist. I want you to listen to me. Let me teach you how I feel. Let me teach you what I think. But I wasn't allowed to sit there listening about Shakespeare. I couldn't even understand what the heck he was talking about. And I didn't care what he was talking about. See? So do you see the revolution that's coming? Do you understand the revolution? You've seen it, the Russian, you've seen the Israel. Do you see the revolution that's coming? All of the traditional sacred cows, as Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory, says there's not going to be one rock left standing upon the other. They're all going to fall because all they've done for you is giving you cancer, giving you heart attacks, giving you nervous breakdowns, giving you all of these things by trying to be what you're not and trying to make other people what they're not. You have a right and a duty to help other people. But by help, if you mean reform that person to your way, then you're not helping, you're interfering with their divine instinct to live as they choose to live. Doesn't make any difference. Hurting somebody else is another thing. We're not talking about that. We're saying a person's right to live. Because if you start reforming and you start condemning yourself and others, then there's going to be a hostility, and the trouble is within yourself. It's not within the system. It's not within the society. It's within you. It's in me. I have no desire to change any of you. I have a desire to see you fulfill yourself as the most unique nut that you can be. The crazier, the better. Somebody come up to me today, I think it was Carol, and told me something that was completely off the wall. And I said, well, I believe it. It was about gnomes and things.
Well, and filth and salamanders.
Right. But who am I to say? But I mean, you know what I felt so good? Here is this beautiful person, felt free to come up and tell me about it. That was great. You know, where else could she go and tell people about elves and gnomes and salamanders that she plays with or whatever she does? I don't know what you do with them, but I mean, I think it's great. Just the feeling. I can talk. I can say it. See? I can be a part of it. Judge not, it says in the Bible, lest you be judged. Helping is one thing. Trying to change to make people like yourself is something else. See? In helping, your duty now in the universe is to allow this thing within you to radiate outward and to heal. It says in the Bible, in the book of Exodus, the Lord will fight for you. You just be still and allow it to happen. Here's a little something that a guru said. These people in the East have the way of summing things up so beautifully And sometimes when you feel somebody else isn't doing right or you feel you're not doing right, try to think of this little statement from this Eastern guru. And this is what he said. I want you to remember something. Going down from the mountain and crossing the desert is just as much a part of the journey as climbing up the mountain and drinking from the spring. Amen. Thank you very much for being with us.